A spoon shook on its own, or so it seemed. Welcome to Faded Echoes. I am your host, Ombra. Tell me in the comments where you're listening from. Your voices shape this community. I always love reading what you share. Now, the mystery. It was a Wednesday, which at the brownstone on West 35th Street means nothing at all is supposed to happen. Mondays are for business that has piled up over the weekend. Fridays are for Wolfe to make his peace with the fact that the world will not leave him alone even as he approaches the sanctuary of Sunday. Tuesdays and Thursdays are like commas in the week you don't notice unless someone leaves them out. A Wednesday, properly conducted, is just background for orchids, food, and Wolfe's waistline. At 11:05 that particular Wednesday, I was at my desk in the office, wondering whether it would be an act of war to switch out one of Wolfe's Romanian beer glasses for a Mets mug I had in a drawer. I hadn't decided on the ethics when the doorbell rang. From the sound, it was not a mild, hopeful ding from a potential client. It was a jab. 3 quick stabs that said whoever was out there considered herself more entitled than the street. "Archie." Wolfe's voice came from behind his desk, where he was leaning back, eyes closed, making the difficult choice between reading the Times book review and pretending all books after 1920 never happened. "If that is a deliveryman, inform him we do not accept unsolicited food." "You're safe," I said, getting up. "No one rings like that for free." I headed down the hall and opened the front door. She had height and knew how to use it. Late 30s, if you ask me, and not her driver's license, with black hair cut in a line that probably had a name in a salon menu. The coat was charcoal, the suit under it navy, and the eyes that met mine were the particular gray people get when they have had a long night and don't want to admit it. "I need Nero Wolfe," she said. "No, hello. No, are you the secretary?" She gave the hall a quick sweep and then fixed back on me. "And I'm not leaving without at least being told no to my face." "You're in luck," I told her. "We specialize in telling people no to their faces. Come in and have one tailored." She hesitated just long enough to decide I was either harmless or not worth worrying about, and stepped inside. As she moved, her handbag tapped against something metal under the coat. I got a small, clear chime, like a spoon hitting a glass. I've learned to notice sounds in this house, in a place where one man insists on controlling every grain of salt that crosses the threshold. Anything unfamiliar might require a report. "This way," I said, and led her to the office. Wolfe was in his custom-built throne in the yellow pajamas that never make it to noon, topped with a brown silk robe that probably cost more than her suit. The room smelled like leather, paper, and the faint ghost of breakfast herbs Fritz had used on a ham omelette. The windows were shut because the outside world had offended Wolfe sometime around 1939, and he had not forgiven it. As the lady walked in, he opened his eyes. They traveled up, down, and then parked on her face. "Yes, Archie?" "Client material," I said, "or failing that, someone with interesting cutlery in her coat." Her lips tightened. Wolfe's left brow climbed a fraction of an inch, which for him is the equivalent of someone else performing a handspring. "My name is Lenore Drake," she said. "I co-own Maison Couleur on Park." I saw Wolfe's nostrils flare. That did it. I'd read him the reviews of Maison Couleur a few months back. New, expensive, French, and loud. The last one had disqualified it from our dinner rotation even before he'd gotten to the words foam and deconstructed. "The restaurant," she added, in case we might mistake it for a hat shop. "Yes," Wolfe said. "You serve things on bare slate and refer to soup as an aromatic experience. Sit down, Miss Drake." "Ms." She took the red leather chair, sat straight, and crossed her legs with the precision of someone who knew people were looking and didn't mind. "And you've clearly read the wrong review." "I've read enough of them," Wolfe said dryly. "What do you want of me?" She looked at me, then back at him. The day had rocked her. That much showed. Whatever had brought her here was heavier than the coat. "I want you to tell me why a spoon trembled," she said. That got even me. I leaned an elbow on my desk and decided the Met's mug experiment could wait until tomorrow. Wolfe's lids lowered. "I am not a physicist." It wasn't physics. Her hand came up to the lapel of her coat, pressing there as if to hold herself together. "It was last night at the restaurant. We had a private tasting for investors. 8 people. Course menu, wine pairings, meticulous service. Everything perfect. Until it wasn't. You'll have to be more generous with your nouns," Wolfe told her. "What is it?" She pulled off the coat, folded it on her lap, and opened the handbag. Out came a slim black case, the kind expensive pens travel in. She flicked it open and took out something wrapped in a white linen napkin. "Before I show you this," she said, "I want to be clear. I'm not crazy. I don't believe in ghosts or poltergeists or whatever the internet is calling. This. I believe in kitchens, staff, and human error. And lately, I've been starting to suspect human sabotage." "Ms. Drake," Wolfe said, "if you're about to confide that your spoon is haunted, I shall disappoint you. My training, such as it is in the interpretation of human motives, not ectoplasm." "Good," she said, "because whatever made it move, it wasn't dead." She unwrapped the linen. Inside was a silver spoon, not a restaurant soup spoon or a demitasse. This was a little oval number with a long handle, polished to the point of vanity, with a small engraved crest at the top, a stylized letter M inside a circle. It was a tasting spoon, the kind chefs use to make sure the sauce is singing in the right key before they send it out. I've spent years watching Fritz test things, and I know a tasting spoon when I see one. If you work in Wolfe's household, you learn utensils as other people learn relatives. "It's pretty," I offered, "but I'd say the tremors are on you, not the silverware. You look like you haven't slept." "I haven't," she said, "and I might not until I know why that happened." Wolfe took out his handkerchief, a yellow one to match the pajamas, and extended his hand. She placed the spoon in his palm. He didn't look thrilled. To him, accepting an object is more intimate than shaking hands. He examined it. The room went quiet. The only sound was the faint hum of the radiator and Miss Drake's breathing, which was a shade faster than you'd expect from a woman in a well-cut suit in a warm room. "The crest?" Wolfe asked. "Our mark," she said. "Maison couleur, new branding, custom silver, custom everything. It cost me more than admitting we serve food to people who take pictures of it." "Ah." He turned the spoon, studied the bowl, the stem, the back, the neck where it narrowed. If he was looking for hairline fractures or false bottoms, he wasn't telling. "Describe the trembling," he said finally. She shut the case with a click, more to control her fingers than the box. "We were serving the 4th course," she began. "Duck with a blackberry reduction. The investors were seated in the private room near the back, and I was at the head of the table. The spoon was in front of me. There," she pointed to an invisible spot on Wolfe's desk, resting on the tablecloth. "I'd just tasted the sauce and set the spoon down. I hadn't touched it again. No one had. Then the lights flickered." "Power surge?" I asked. "We don't get power surges," she said. "We have a stabilizer. The lights dipped, came back. 2 seconds, maybe. And when they did, the spoon was moving." "How?" Wolfe's tone had not changed, but something in the air had. He was paying attention now. "It was shivering. That's the only word I can find. The bowl vibrated against the cloth. I heard it first, that faint chatter." She mimicked it with her fingernails on the arm of the chair. "Then it hopped. Not far, just jerked, like something had snapped it. The guests saw it. One of them shouted. Another knocked over his wine." "Impossible," I said reflexively, which was a stupid thing for a man in my line of work to say in Nero Wolfe's office. Indeed, Wolfe murmured. Yet it occurred. You are certain no one touched the table? No one was even close enough, she said. And the floor didn't shake. I'd have felt that. It was just the lights, the hum, like a pressure in the air, and then the spoon. When I picked it up, it was warm, hotter than the sauce should have made it. I nearly dropped it. And this was observed by 8 investors, Wolfe said, all of whom now suspect your premises are infested by demons. She winced. Not exactly. They laughed it off at first. One of them joked about ghosts. Another said it was static electricity, but it shook them. And then, she swallowed. Great, I thought. Now we get to the part where someone choked on the duck and died, and she wants us to prove the spoon is innocent. And then what? Wolfe prodded. One of them got an anonymous message, she said. This morning, an email. It said, last night was only a warning. Withdraw your money from Maison Couleur before it's too late. The next tremble will spill more than sauce. Her mouth twisted around the last words. The tone had been clever enough to annoy her. Charming, I said. Any idea who sent it? No, she replied. But I know it wasn't a joke. Our investors are nervous and rich, which is a dangerous combination. 2 of them have already asked if our insurance covers acts of God and acts of lunatics. One asked if I had enemies. I told him no. I was lying. Ms. Drake, Wolfe said, you run a restaurant in Manhattan that charges $34 for lamb. You have enemies. What you lack is the necessary clarity about which of them is sufficiently malicious and sufficiently clever. Why come to me? Go to the police. She laughed once, short and bitter. And tell them what? That a spoon twitched and an email made my investors nervous. I tried calling the precinct. The officer who took the call suggested I call the electrician. I need someone who will treat this seriously. And you believe I will? Wolfe lifted his bulk slightly forward. On what evidence? On your reputation, she said simply. And on the fact that this, she nodded at the spoon in his hand, is the second time in a week someone has used my restaurant as a stage. That is new, I said. You left that part off the menu. She nodded once. 3 nights ago, someone broke into my wine cellar. They didn't steal anything. They moved things. A crate here, a bottle there. They loosened one of the heavy racks so it leaned just enough that if someone were careless, opening it, the bottles would fall. They wanted someone to notice, wanted me to know that they had been there and could do worse. Wolfe closed his eyes for a moment, which for him is not a sign of boredom. It's when he flips through the files in his head. Chronology, he said. The cellar incident was 3 nights ago, the spoon caper last night, the email this morning. Yes. And you see a pattern. I see someone who wants to scare me, she said. Or ruin me. Or both. Someone who knows the restaurant. Who knows its systems, who can move in and out without leaving a trace. Someone who doesn't mind playing with danger to prove they can. And I have several candidates. There, I told Wolfe. She comes with suspects already prepared. That should save us time. He ignored me. What do you ask of me, Ms. Drake? To identify your enemy, to prevent the next trembling, to reassure your investors that your spoons do not cavort? She took a breath and met his gaze head-on. That impressed me. I've seen district attorneys wilt under that stare. I want to know who is doing this, she said, before they escalate, before the next warning involves blood. Whoever it is, they are not just playing with my restaurant. They're playing with my livelihood, my staff, my name, and they're enjoying it. And your resources? Wolfe inquired. Your capacity to compensate me for my inconvenience is not supernatural, I assume. She named a figure that made even my eyebrows consider moving north. Wolfe's mouth pressed together. Money does not excite him the way food does, but it speaks a language he understands. I could pay more if I have to, she added quickly. Within reason, but frankly, if I lose one of these investors, the number becomes irrelevant. I'll be finished. And why, Wolfe said, do you suppose your enemy chose spectacle over efficiency? If their aim is to destroy you, there are quicker ways than coaxing a spoon into gymnastics. I've been asking myself the same thing, she admitted. I think they want to show off, to demonstrate control, to make me feel like nothing in that building is really mine. Her jaw tightened. They're succeeding. Wolfe grunted. He glanced at the spoon again, then at me. Archie. Yes, boss? Do you recall the invitation you declined last month for us to dine at Maison Couleur? Vividly, I said. I told you an evening surrounded by foam and influencers might do you good. You told me it would not. Pray. He turned to Ms. Drake. You may have saved my life by sparing me a meal served on a plank of reclaimed wood. That obliges me only to consider your petition, not to grant it. If you're not interested, she said, standing, tell me now and I'll go. I'll find someone else, or I won't, but I won't beg. Sit down, Wolfe snapped. She hesitated, then sat. I watched him. His fingers were rolling the spoon by the handle, back and forth like a baton. That was new. Wolfe does not fidget. If he moves his hands, it's to reach for something edible or printed. You're not lying, he said thoughtfully. Not about the incidents, at least. You may be obscuring some of your own history, your quarrels, your business entanglements, but that is natural. People in distress rarely begin with their ugliest truths. Your story, however, has one virtue. What's that? She asked. It is intolerable. Meaning? I asked. Meaning, he said, that someone is using a kitchen as a theater, to frighten, to coerce, perhaps to extort. They have turned tools of taste into instruments of intimidation. That offends me. He set the spoon carefully on his desk blotter. I will take your case, Ms. Drake, he said. If you had told me that morning I would hear Nero Wolfe volunteer to enter a feud between a restaurant and a spoon, I'd have referred you to the nearest competent asylum. But there it was. She let out a breath she might have been holding since she rang the bell. Thank her. Do not thank me prematurely, he said. You will almost certainly regret it before you are done. He pointed at the spoon. This remains with me. Archie will accompany you back to your establishment presently. He will observe your premises, interview your staff, and familiarize himself with your investors. You will provide full information on their relationships with you and with one another. You will conceal nothing. The smallest omission may be the crack through which your enemy has crept. She nodded slowly. All right. One more thing, Wolfe added. Have any of your staff or your investors been here, in this house? She blinked. No? Then, after thinking, not that I know of. Why? Curiosity, he said. A stray impulse. Archie. Yeah? Fritz has been experimenting with a blackberry reduction, he said. Inform him he is to destroy it. I whistled. You're taking it that seriously? I'm safeguarding my table, he said curtly. A man who allows spoons to misbehave in other people's dining rooms may one day wake to find his own in revolt. I will not have that. Take Miss Drake back to her lair. Ask questions, listen more than you speak, and do not allow any of their cutlery to tremble in your presence. If it does, report immediately. Miss Drake stood, gathering her coat, and I followed suit. One question, I said as I held the door for her. What made you so sure Mr. Wolfe would take this on? From where I'm standing, it looks like an even bet. She glanced back at him, then at me. He doesn't look like a man who enjoys being mocked, she said. And someone has turned my restaurant into a joke. If I know anything about pride, it's that he'll hate that almost as much as I do. She wasn't wrong. We stepped out into the hall. As I reached to close the door, Wolfe spoke. Archie. Still here, I said. Before you go, he said, have Fritz check the silver drawer. I want to be certain every spoon in this house remains obedient. Yes, sir, I said. If any of them so much as shiver, I'll clap them in irons. I pulled the door shut behind us. The case, such as it was, had walked in with good legs, grey eyes, and a haunted tasting spoon. Wolfe had taken it, which meant my Wednesday had gone from comma to exclamation point. I didn't know yet who was behind the theatrics at Maison Couleur, or how they'd gotten a piece of silver to jump without a visible finger, but I knew one thing. Whoever thought they could rattle Nero Wolfe's cutlery by long distance had just picked the wrong kitchen to play games with. Fritz was polishing a copper pot when I stuck my head into the kitchen to relay Wolfe's order. If you've never seen Fritz Brenner polish copper, imagine a priest tending a sacred relic, and you'll have the right idea. He looked up, blinking behind his glasses. "Destroy it," he repeated, as if I'd told him to set fire to St. Patrick's Cathedral. His exact words, I said. "The blackberry reduction, send it to its final resting place, and check the silver drawer to make sure none of our spoons have developed stage fright." Fritz muttered something in Swiss German that I didn't need translated. But he dutifully crossed to the narrow drawer under the marble block and opened it, his eyes moving over the neat row of polished silver as if counting heads in a nursery. "They are behaving," he said, "as spoons should." That's what we like to hear. I left him to his grief and caught up with Ms. Drake in the hall. She'd already buttoned her coat, and the tension in her shoulders said she was not looking forward to going home. When a woman in her position isn't eager to return to the kingdom she rules, you know something's off. Outside, the air had the flavor of late fall, cold enough to suggest winter, warm enough to let autumn have the last word. A cab rolled by, but she shook her head. "I drove," she said. "It's down the block." We walked half a minute in silence before she spoke again. "You must think I'm hysterical." "If you were hysterical," I said, "you'd have screamed, fainted, or insisted we perform an exorcism on your flatware. You just walked into a house where the man in charge hates strangers more than he hates adjectives. That takes spine." She managed a brief smile before it collapsed again. "It's not the spoon that bothers me. It's the intent. Someone wants me frightened. Someone who knows exactly how to get under my skin." "Well," I said, opening the passenger door of her black sedan for her, "that makes two of you who are under some kind of skin. Wolfe doesn't like being toyed with either." She drove us east toward Park, maneuvering through midday traffic with the kind of controlled precision that suggested she used the steering wheel the way a surgeon uses a scalpel. Her jaw flexed each time we hit a red light. "You said you had enemies," I prompted. "Not enemies," she said. "People with attachments, tempers, resentments. Restaurants attract egos like wine attracts fruit flies." "Give me a sample platter," she exhaled. "There's Alain Moreau, my executive chef. Brilliant, temperamental, and furious that I brought in a second investor without consulting him. There's Daphne Vale, the sommelier. She's convinced the investors are idiots. She's probably right, but she's vocal about it in ways that don't help. Anyone not on payroll? A former partner, Jonah Rusk. He helped me start the place but bailed when the investors wanted a glossier brand. We didn't part well. He claimed I'd pushed him out. I didn't. Not exactly. And the investors themselves. She made a sound that wasn't quite a laugh. 4 of them are bored heirs looking for a vanity project. 2 are venture types who think farm to table is an asset class. 1 collects restaurants the way some men collect cufflinks. Any of them could panic. Any of them could sabotage. Or someone wants to convince them to cut and run. Her silence answered that. Traffic opened up and we made better time. The restaurant appeared ahead. Maison Couleur. The facade was expensive restraint. Dark slate, a brass door, and a discreet sign that suggested the food inside was too proud to shout about itself. She parked in the loading space and cut the engine. "Before we go in," she said quietly, "I should tell you something else. Alain doesn't know I'm hiring Wolfe. He doesn't trust private detectives. Says they stir up dust where none exists." "That's funny," I said. "Wolfe says chefs do the same thing." She almost smiled. Inside, the restaurant was dark wood, soft lighting, and the faint aroma of thyme and roasted poultry. Staff milled around, prepping for lunch service. A waiter, polishing glasses, glanced at us with the polite suspicion that any unexpected visitor earns in a place built on routine. "Everyone's on edge," she murmured as she led me toward the back. "Since last night, no one knows what to think." We passed through a narrow hallway and into the private dining room. A long table stretched under a chandelier, designed to resemble floating droplets of glass. The tablecloth had been replaced, but I could see where her gaze went, the spot where the spoon had shivered like a guilty conscience. "This is where it happened," she said. "I keep replaying it. The flicker of the lights, the sound of the spoon hitting the cloth. It's the sound that haunts me." I crouched, studying the table legs, the floor, the chandelier chain, anything that might have caused a tremor. Everything looked solid, and I've spent years noticing details that don't belong. "Electrical issue?" I asked. "Checked this morning. All normal." "You said the spoon was hot?" "Yes. Warmer than anything it touched." "Any heating elements under the table?" "No." I nodded slowly. "Okay. Show me the cellar next." She hesitated before nodding. "All right, but be prepared. The staff hates going down there today." The stairs descended past a row of wine posters, turning dim and cool as we went. The cellar was organized enough, but not neat. Wooden racks, crates, bottles arranged and rearranged by different hands. She pointed to a rack leaning ever so slightly. That one. It was straight Monday night. By Tuesday morning it was tilted. Alain nearly opened it without noticing. I touched it lightly. It wasn't unstable, but it had been tampered with, just subtle enough to look like neglect, just dangerous enough to matter. "And nothing missing?" I asked. "Nothing." "Meaning whoever did this isn't interested in wine?" "No. Just fear." She nodded. I made notes. Rack loosened, spoon heated and moved, email sent. Escalation in neat steps. Not random, not impulsive. Calculated. We climbed back up. As we stepped into the hallway, a voice sliced the air in a French accent sharp enough to peel paint. "Lenore, you did not tell me we were expecting company." A man in chef whites blocked the doorway, mid-40s, tall, hair tied back, eyes blazing like a flambé that got out of hand. "Alain," she said, weary. "This is Archie Goodwin. He's assisting with—" "With what?" he snapped. "With turning my kitchen into a crime scene?" He looked at me like I was an insect someone had let in by mistake. "We will talk," he said tightly to her. "Alone." "No," she said. "Not this time." He didn't like that, and as he glared at me, I made a mental note. If someone in this place wanted to make spoons dance and bottles fall, Chef Moreau had the temperament for choreography, but not necessarily the finesse. The day was just getting started, and my list of suspects already had more flavor than the duck reduction Fritz had just murdered. Alain's glare didn't waver. If heat could sear steel, I'd have come out of that hallway in stripes. Lenore stepped between us, not protectively, more like someone redirecting a bull that had taken a wrong interest. "Alain," she said evenly, "this is not the time." "It is exactly the time," he shot back. "Yesterday, a spectacle. Today, you bring in a detective. Tomorrow, what? You accuse your own staff of witchcraft?" "I'm accusing no one," she said. "I'm investigating." He sneered. "Investigating what? A spoon that wobbled? A rack that shifted because someone stacked the crates carelessly? You insult your team." "Archie is here because something happened," she said, keeping her voice steady. "Something that scared our investors." "Investors?" he spat, as if the word tasted like something he'd throw out behind the kitchen. "They frighten easily. A candle flickers and they think the building is haunted. Do you let them dictate what is real now?" I stepped forward before he could gain more steam. "Relax, Chef. I'm not here to condemn your soufflés or your soul. Just asking questions." He swung his eyes to me, cold and sharp. Then here is an answer. Nothing happened in this restaurant that was not caused by coincidence or incompetence, and I do not tolerate incompetence. For a man who doesn't tolerate incompetence, I said, you're sure working up a lot of sweat over a few questions. His jaw tightened. If I'd poked him 1 inch further, we'd have needed oven mitts for safety. Lenore exhaled through her nose. Alain, go back to the kitchen, she said. Not until you tell me who else you've dragged into this farce. At that moment, a slim figure moved into view from the dining room, dark red hair braided down one shoulder, a wine key looped to her belt like a gunslinger's holster. This had to be Daphne Vale, the sommelier, with a stated disdain for fools and financiers. She assessed us with cool, amused eyes. Trouble, she announced lightly. And it's not even noon. That must be a record. Lenore closed her eyes briefly. Daphne, please. No, Daphne said. Let me guess. She pointed at me. You're the detective. You have that look. The 1 part skepticism, 1 part exhaustion, 1 part please don't waste my time. That's the Archie Goodwin signature blend, I said. Pairs well with trouble and bad alibis. She smirked. Alain did not. Why is he here? Alain demanded. Because, Daphne said, someone in this establishment thinks rattling silverware counts as performance art. And our fearless leader, she gave Lenore a small bow, has decided not to leave the interpretation of the piece to chance. Alain spun away sharply, muttering curses in French that involved mothers, knives, and gods of cuisine. Don't let him fool you, Daphne murmured as he disappeared. He's scared, but Alain Moreau would rather swallow a wine bottle whole than look afraid. I'll keep that in mind, I said. She glanced at Lenore. Is there anything you want me to show our guest? Or should I stick to rebalancing the wine list before Alain hurls a friar through the wall? For now, Lenore said. Just keep your ears open. Always, Daphne said. Easier than keeping my mouth shut. She drifted away with a glide that probably made investors weak in the knees. Lenore let out a slow breath. You see why I didn't want to mention Wolfe yet. The staff is on edge. I can tell, I said. Half of them look like they're expecting the chandeliers to burst into flames. Half? She said. I'd say all. We moved back through the kitchen where pots clanged with more force than necessary, and no one met Lenore's eye. There wasn't open hostility. They weren't that foolish, but there was tension humming under the surface. A pot simmered with the same energy as the staff. Too hot, too fast. Anyone else on your list I should meet? I asked. One, she said. The investor liaison who organized last night's tasting. He's in the office upstairs. He arrived early to handle the fallout. The office was up a narrow staircase overlooking the dining room. When we reached the door, it swung open before she knocked. A man in his 50s stepped out. Neat suit, neat hair, neat smile, neat everything. The kind of neat that is meant to calm people but usually has the opposite effect. Lenore, he said warmly. I've been waiting for you. Then he saw me. And we have company. Should I be worried? This is Archie Goodwin, she said. He's consulting. Ah, he said, shaking my hand with a grip like a chilled handshake from a mannequin. Elliot Vanner, investor wrangler, diplomat, professional fire extinguisher. Busy morning for you then, I said. His smile thinned. Busy night. Several of our investors called me at dawn. One requested a séance for the dining room. Another said his lawyer advised him to halt further contributions until the Spectre issue is resolved. He sighed. Spectre issue. I've handled restaurant tantrums for 20 years and never once had to discuss the supernatural. Good news, I said. Wolfe doesn't believe in it. Wolfe? Elliot's brows rose. You brought in Nero Wolfe? Lenore, that's unexpected and necessary, she said simply. He held her gaze. Are you sure you want to open the books to someone like him? He, how do I put this, does not play well with the powerful. He plays well with the truth, she said. That's enough. He didn't argue, but his eyes flicked to me with a calculated curiosity. I pegged him as the type who always knew more than he admitted and revealed less than he knew. Mr. Goodwin, he said, if there's anything you require, do ask. Though I warn you, the only thing more unpredictable than the restaurant business is the people who pay for it. I've noticed, I said. We stepped back into the hall, and the moment the door closed behind Elliot, Lenore's shoulders tensed again, different from how she stiffened around Alain, and not quite the way she braced around Daphne. Elliot seems helpful, I offered. He is helpful, she said. But Elliot is never just one thing. He's always helpful to someone. The question is who he thinks he's helping today. We reached the main floor, the dining room humming with pre-opening motion. The staff had scattered to their tasks, but I could feel eyes following us, curiosity, suspicion, fear, maybe guilt. Lenore stopped near the host stand, her fingers tapping the polished wood. So, she said quietly, what do you think? I think your spoon didn't tremble by accident, I said. Your wine rack didn't shift by coincidence, and your email didn't send itself. And who's doing it? I looked at the room, at the polished glasses, the shining cutlery, the impeccable surfaces hiding something sharp underneath. I don't know yet, I said, but I know how they're thinking. Which is? I met her gray, tired eyes. They want to unsettle you, I said, but not destroy you. Not yet. They're building to something, and when someone stages small incidents with this kind of precision, they're planning a bigger one. Her throat tightened. How big? Big enough, I said, that Wolfe will want every suspect arranged neatly in his head before the next spoon so much as twitches. Before she could answer, her phone buzzed. She checked it, and the blood drained from her face. What is it? I asked. She handed it to me. The screen showed a new message from an unknown number. It read, tick, tick, tremble. Next time, something breaks. Lenore's fingers trembled just enough that she steadied the phone with her other hand. I read the message twice, then a third time, and each pass made it sink a little deeper, not because of the words themselves, but because of the timing. Whoever was behind this had a good sense of theater, and worse, an excellent sense of when to strike. Who has this number? I asked quietly. Only staff and investors, she said, and a few vendors. It's not public. Anyone recently fired? Anyone who stormed out vowing revenge? Saboteurs are sentimental like that. No one, she said. We've lost some staff over the last few months, but not dramatically. And this, she tapped the screen. This doesn't feel like a grudge from 6 months ago. Feels recent, I agreed. Feels close. Archie, she said, lowering the phone. He knew. Whoever sent it knew I was with you. I didn't answer right away. She wasn't wrong. The timing was too sharp. A message landing precisely when she was discussing suspects with a detective wasn't luck. It was a demonstration. I scanned the dining room. No one was paying obvious attention, but that meant nothing. In a place like this, everyone learns to look busy while keeping their ears open. Let's not assume omniscience yet, I said. There are other possibilities. Scheduled messages, lucky guesses. You don't believe that, she said. She had me there. No, I don't. Her hand closed around the phone like she wanted to crush it but wasn't raised that way. What now? Now, I said, I report to Wolfe. He doesn't like being kept waiting, or misinformed, or surprised. This qualifies as all three. Her eyes flicked toward the private room, the kitchen, the staircase. Every place where a listening ear could be tucked away. Do you think I should tell the staff? She asked. Not if you want panic, I said. or a stampede, or someone deciding that running is safer than sticking around for the main event. For now, this stays between us. She nodded slowly. Then go. I'll try to keep things normal. Normal is highly overrated, I said, but do your best. As I turned to leave, Daphne slid into view again like she'd been studying door frames for eavesdropping opportunities. You're leaving early, she said. Either you've solved the mystery of the possessed spoon, or something worse has happened. You always this observant? I asked, only when bored. I'll keep that in mind. Her gaze dropped to Lenore's hand. Even from a distance, she'd noticed the way Lenore held the phone, tight and unnatural. Everything okay? Daphne asked lightly, but her eyes sharpened. Fine, Lenore said too quickly. Daphne's brow rose a millimeter. Lying with that level of confidence should be a job requirement. Not now, Lenore murmured. Daphne nodded, but didn't back down. Just remember, she told her quietly. If something's going on and you want allies instead of suspects, we're not all enemies here. She slipped away again, leaving the air colder than she found it. I watched her go. She's sharp. She's sharp enough to cut herself, Lenore said. And she usually does. Still, I said, she sees things. Keep her close. If someone in this place knows more than they're saying, she might be the one who spots it. Or causes it, she muttered. You don't trust anyone here much, do you? She gave me a humorless smile. This is the restaurant business, Archie. Trust is a garnish. Nice when it shows up, unnecessary most of the time, and dangerous if used incorrectly. I couldn't argue. I stepped out into the chill midday air and headed for the curb, raising a hand for a cab. One screeched to a halt like it owed me money. As soon as I slid inside and shut the door, the driver asked, "Where to?" "West 35th, I said. "Brownstone. And step on it enough to make the pedestrians nervous." He grinned and pulled out. While we cut through traffic, I went over the details. A spoon that trembled without reason, a rack moved without theft, an email sent with precision timing, a second message that sounded like a countdown. 4 suspects with motive, 1 building full of nerves, and a saboteur whose boldness was growing by the hour. Wolfe wouldn't like this one. Not because he disliked mysteries, but because he disliked mysteries that relied on theatrics. He considered drama a waste of everyone's patience and intellect. But the moment I showed him that message, he'd flip into what I like to call the indignant genius mode. A dangerous place. For the mastermind, not for us. By the time the cab pulled up to the brownstone, I'd already rehearsed the summary. Wolfe listens best when he doesn't have to ask twice. Inside, I hung my hat, went straight down the hall, and opened the door to the office. Wolfe was in his chair, hands folded, eyes closed. I knew he wasn't asleep. Wolfe never sleeps in that chair unless the universe is ending. "You're back early," he said without opening his eyes. "That bodes poorly." "Depends on who you ask," I said. Lenore Drake would say it bodes extremely poorly. He opened his eyes at that. I handed him the phone with the message pulled up. He read it once, then again, then set the phone on his blotter as if it were an insect needing classification. "Tick, tick, tremble," he murmured. A childish turn of phrase. But the author is not a child. "No," I said. "They're clever and bold." "They are reckless," Wolfe corrected. "Recklessness and boldness share a border, but do not occupy the same country." He leaned back, eyes narrowing. "And they escalate," he added. "Predictably, deliberately. The cellar, the spoon, the first threat, now a second. They are announcing themselves step by step, building toward something." "Yes," Wolfe said. "But what?" "That," I said, "is why I came home early." He steepled his fingers. "Archie, bring me the spoon." I retrieved it from where he'd placed it earlier, gleaming under the lamp. Wolfe contemplated it with a look he usually reserves for rare orchids and people who have just said something unforgivably idiotic. "The spoon trembled," he said, "but your Ms. Drake trembles more, and that, Archie, is what our adversary is counting on. So what's our next move?" He closed his eyes, inhaled deeply, and let the air out through his nose. "Our next move," he said, "is to make the perpetrator believe their theatrics are working. Fear is an intoxicant to such minds. They will push harder, hard enough to reveal themselves." "And us?" "We will prepare," Wolfe said. "We will observe, and we will let them take one more step." He opened his eyes again. "Because the next tremor," he said softly, "will bring them into the open." Wolfe sat there with the spoon resting between his fingers as if it were a clue from a Greek oracle. I've seen him hold rarer artifacts with less solemnity. He wasn't admiring it. He was listening to it in his own way, waiting for it to tell him what kind of person would use harmless silverware as a warning shot. "Their next step will expose them," he repeated. I leaned against my desk. "Fine, but I'd rather not sit around waiting for someone to drop a chandelier on Lenore's dining room." "Phooey," he muttered. "They are not homicidal, not yet. These gestures are contrived for discomfort, not carnage. Not yet is a phrase I'd like to retire before dessert." Wolfe gave me a look that suggested my commentary was adding unnecessary clutter to the air. Then he pushed the spoon 2 inches forward with a deliberate tap of his finger. "Describe the people." "Which ones?" "All," he said. "Begin with the chef." I ran through Alain Moreau, the human blowtorch with a French accent that could Julienne steal. Wolfe listened, eyes half closed, making the occasional grunt that meant he was filing the man under temperamental but not stupid. Then I gave him Daphne Vale, sharp, watchful, brittle at the edges but controlled. Wolfe narrowed his eyes. A woman who observes, dangerous in kitchens and in life. Next came Elliot Vanner. Wolfe didn't grunt this time. He made a small noise that was halfway to a snort. "Investor liaisons," he said, "are rarely as neutral as they pretend." "And Lenore?" I asked. "She is the fulcrum," he replied. "Everything balances on her, resentments, ambitions, rivalries. If one wanted to unsettle a castle, one need not breach the walls. One need only unseat its queen." "Or make her think the walls are shaking," I said. "Precisely." He reached for the phone again and read the message once more, as if savoring its odor. "This person is theatrical but not impulsive. Their threats are incremental. They want a reaction. They crave attention, but they also crave control." He tapped the phone lightly. "This is not the work of an outsider, Archie. This is internal." "Meaning one of her own?" "Yes. And what do we do with that?" "Exploit it," Wolfe said. "They will push harder if they believe their scheme is working. You will return to Maison Couleur tonight." "Tonight? Are they open?" "They have dinner service," he said sharply, "and presumably customers who expect to eat without witnessing paranormal flatware." "They're open," I said. "But Lenore didn't say anything about me showing up again tonight." "She will accept it," Wolfe declared. "You will observe the dinner staff, the opening hour in particular. Human beings betray themselves when under pressure. A restaurant's rhythm reveals its secrets. Who avoids whom? Who watches too closely? Who flinches when a light flickers? You expecting more light tricks? Possibly. The perpetrator may want to escalate tonight. They think they are invisible. Humans in that state are tempted to act boldly. And if they do something dangerous? Then you will prevent it," Wolfe said simply. "Oh, splendid," I said. "So when a rack of wine comes crashing down, I'm supposed to take it on the chin like a gentleman." "You have reflexes," Wolfe said. "Use them." Before I could remind him that my reflexes were not meant for wrestling wine racks, the phone on his desk buzzed. Not my phone, not his personal line, the house line. He stared at it. "Archie." "I know," I said. "You wouldn't answer it if it was God calling to apologize." I picked it up. Nero Wolfe's residence. A familiar voice snapped back. Goodwin? It's me. It was Lenore, and the tremor in her voice made the spoon incident sound like amateur hour. What happened? I asked. Someone. She took a breath. Someone broke a glass in the main dining area. Glass breaks, I said, though I was already alert. Not like this, she said shakily. It exploded. Behind me, Wolfe opened his eyes a fraction. Exploded? How? It was on the table, she said. Clean, empty, miles from the kitchen. No heat. Nothing touched it. I was 2 feet away. I just set it down for polishing and then... Her breath hitched. It cracked from the inside out. Glass flew. No theatrics, no warning. That was escalation. Anyone hurt? A waiter's hand got grazed, she said. Nothing serious, but Archie, it wasn't natural, and it wasn't an accident. I met Wolfe's gaze. His eyes were sharp now, all traces of disinterest gone. We're coming, I said into the phone. Don't touch anything. Archie, please hurry. She hung up. Wolfe exhaled once, deep and annoyed. We must accelerate. Meaning you're leaving the house? I asked. He glared at me. Do not be absurd. I will not budge from this chair. You, however, will transport your exceptionally valuable hide back to Maison Couleur at once. I figured. And Archie, regarding Miss Drake. Yes. Stay near her. The next tremor may not be directed at silverware. That landed heavier than any spoon on a tablecloth. I grabbed my coat. Wolfe held up the spoon one last time, studying its engraved crest. Our adversary, he murmured, dearly loves symbolism. I paused. You think the spoon was chosen intentionally? Yes, he said, because a spoon can stir. And the glass? His lips thinned. A glass can break. He set the spoon down sharply. Go, he said. I left the brownstone at a brisk clip. The evening air felt colder than it had any right to be. Somewhere between leaving Wolfe's office and stepping onto the sidewalk, a quiet truth settled in. Our mysterious puppet master had skipped subtlety, and if the pattern held, their next move wouldn't just be loud, it would be dangerous. By the time the cab screeched to a stop in front of Maison Couleur, the early dinner crowd had started to gather. The restaurant glowed softly through the tall windows, polished, serene, and absolutely lying about the state of things inside. I hopped out, tossed a bill at the driver that ensured he wouldn't file a complaint about my urgency, and went straight for the brass door. The moment I stepped in, the air told the truth the windows didn't. A tension hung in the room like someone had overwhipped the atmosphere. Patrons at 2 early tables were murmuring with their heads too close together. A hostess with a clipboard was trying to smile hard enough to disguise fear. And near the bar, a busboy swept glass into a metal pan with the kind of caution usually reserved for handling venomous reptiles. Lenore stood by the nearest pillar, her coat still on, her expression held together by pure willpower. When she saw me, the relief that crossed her face was too brief to register as comfort. Where? I asked. She pointed toward a four-top near the front window. The table had been cleared except for a folded napkin the busboy hadn't dared touch. The white cloth was sprinkled with glittering shards not yet swept, as if they'd hesitated at the edge of the table before deciding gravity could deal with them later. I crouched. The pattern didn't make sense. If the glass had fallen, it would have shattered outward from the point of impact. This one had ruptured, the way a bubble bursts from internal pressure, or from some kind of stress directed inward. You didn't touch anything? I asked. I told staff to leave it, she said. It happened 10 minutes ago. Anyone see it? A server and one of the hosts, she said, and, unfortunately, a couple at that booth. She nodded toward a pair by the window. They watched me with interest that bordered on concern, as if I was part detective, part exterminator. Let me guess, I said. They're already planning their Yelp review. They asked if they should be concerned about ghosts, she said flatly. I told them the only ghost haunting this place was my patients. I stood and looked around. Alain hovered in the doorway that led to the kitchen, arms crossed, face a storm cloud that had given up trying to hide its thunder. Daphne leaned against the bar, arms folded, observing everything with a sommelier's practiced detachment. Elliot was nowhere in sight, which, for a man whose job involved soothing investors, was either strategic or suspicious. "Show me the glass," I said. "It's in the kitchen," she murmured. Alain insisted on collecting the pieces himself. He's convinced it wasn't sabotage. Of course he is. Lead the way. We walked past the bar, where Daphne's eyes flicked to mine, sharp as a corkscrew. Her glance asked, "Are we at war?" I gave a small nod that translated to, "Looks like it." She didn't smile, but her shoulders straightened, like someone preparing for a fight she'd been expecting. Inside the kitchen, the temperature jumped 20 degrees and the noise level doubled. The metal heartbeat of pots and pans clanged under the hum of orders already trickling in. Alain stood at a stainless steel prep station, glass shards spread across a linen towel like fragments of a dissected organ. He didn't greet me. He lifted a piece of glass with tweezers and held it to the overhead light. "A flaw," he announced. "That is the answer. A microfracture in manufacturing aggravated by temperature change." "What temperature change?" I asked. The glass was empty. "Clean, room temp." "From washing to drying," he snapped. "Even perfect glass may have weaknesses. Nothing supernatural, nothing criminal." "That's an awful lot of certainty," I said. "Especially from someone who didn't see it." His jaw tightened. "I'm a chef, not an idiot." "I didn't accuse you of being one," I said. "You're volunteering." Lenore flinched. Alain's nostrils flared, but he didn't rise to the bait, one sign of intelligence, despite his other faults. I leaned closer to the shattered pieces. Thin lines spidered through, the fragments, but not in the usual starburst of an impact. These were tighter, more irregular, and one shard showed an odd discoloration near the edge. "Is this from heat?" I asked. "No," Alain said curtly. "There was no heat source. None. Unless you believe we are attacked by demons." "Not ruling anything out," I said. "Except demons." He slammed the tweezers down, turned, and stalked toward the walk-in fridge as if cold air might calm him. When he'd gone, Lenore released a breath. "What do you see?" "I see a temper," I said. "His, and the glasses." "You think he did this?" "No," I said. "If Alain wanted to sabotage something, it would involve a knife, a flame, or a lawsuit. This is too delicate for him, too theatrical, sabotage masquerading as an accident." She rubbed her arms. "It's getting worse, Archie." "That's the point," I said. "Whoever's doing this wants escalation, wants fear, wants you off balance. And they're succeeding." I caught her gaze. "Maybe. But not for long. Wolfe thinks the next step will expose them, and I'm starting to agree." Her phone buzzed again. The sound cut through the kitchen like a conductor's cue. She hesitated before pulling it out, as if bracing for what fresh misery had arrived. When she looked at the screen, her breath caught. "What now?" I asked. She handed it over. A new message. "Time's almost up, Lenore. When the lights go dark, you'll understand who holds the switch." I frowned. "Lights go dark," she swallowed. "Archie, if they take out power during dinner, could cause panic," I said. "Customers, staff, equipment. And," she whispered, "our walk-in freezer has a spring-loaded seal. If someone were inside when the lights go out." I didn't let her finish. I was already moving. "Where's Alain?" "In the walk-in." And the timing, I realized, was too precise, too perfect. Someone wanted the lights to go out, and someone had already put the chef in the one place where darkness could turn dangerous in under 10 seconds. I bolted for the walk-in door, because for the first time in this game of trembling spoons and shattering glass, someone's life might actually be on the line. I reached the walk-in in record time, shoving past a line cook who yelped like I'd rearranged his skeleton. The big steel door loomed ahead, condensation beading on its surface in fat droplets. I grabbed the handle, pulled, locked, not bolted from the outside, just sealed the way walk-ins do when the pressure equalizes. But this one didn't budge even with my shoulder behind it. "Alain," I shouted. "You in there?" A muffled thump answered me. Then another. Sharp. Frantic. Great. He was inside and he knew it wasn't good. "Lenore!" I barked. She was already there, breathless, reaching for the safety release, a metal panel disguised as part of the frame. She flicked it open. The emergency override should have released the pressure. The door didn't move. Her face drained. No, that's impossible." "Nothing's impossible today," I said, planting both feet and yanking again. A third thump sounded inside, louder, panicked. Then a shout, warped by steel and insulation. "He's losing air," Lenore said. "Or he thinks he is." Walk-ins don't suffocate people, but fear will. "Get everyone back," I told her. "Clear the kitchen." Her eyes flicked to the overhead lights, still steady. No darkness, no cut power. Not yet. But the message's warning wasn't subtle. When the lights go dark, I wedged my fingers into the seam of the door, pulled until my knuckles turned white. The seal gave half an inch, maybe less. Not enough. "Find something to wedge it," I said. "A crowbar, wrench, anything that doesn't cost more than my salary." She dashed off. The thumps inside grew more violent, echoing like a drum beat in a metal cathedral. Alain wasn't a man who embraced panic, but even a tyrant loses composure when locked in a freezing box with a cryptic threat hanging in the air. I pressed my ear to the door. "Alain, stand back!" A curse came through, hard to miss even with the insulation. Good. If he was cursing, he wasn't unconscious. Lenore returned with 2 items, a steel meat hook and a long-handled pan scraper. Not ideal, but beggars can't be choosers. I jammed the hook into the seam, leveraged my weight. The door groaned, the seal resisted. Then the lights flickered, not dimmed, not surged, just a quick, sickly blink, long enough to make my heart drop 3 inches. Lenore gasped. No. The lights came back, and that half-second flicker was all I needed. Because in that moment, a sound came from behind us, a scrape, soft but deliberate. Something moving across the tile floor, something small, something metallic. I didn't turn. I kept pulling. The door gave another fraction of an inch. Cold air hissed through the crack, biting my fingers. Inside, Alain's pounding grew louder, more desperate. "Again," I said. "Help me." Together, Lenore and I hauled on the handle. The scraper clattered to the floor, but the hook held. The door inched open, slowly, painfully, like dragging a boulder up a staircase. Then, with a wrenching pop, the seal broke. Cold fog spilled outward like a ghost escaping. Alain stumbled out, red-faced and furious, grabbing the frame to steady himself. He sucked in a breath like he'd been underwater. "What was that?" he barked. "Your lucky day," I said. "You almost became a frozen entree." He glared at me, then at Lenore. "This is madness. This is sabotage." "You don't say," I muttered. Alain's eyes darted around the kitchen. Cooks had retreated to the far stations, rattled. Daphne stood in the hallway, wine key in hand, not pretending she wasn't listening. Then Lenore stiffened. She pointed to the tile. "Floor just behind me." I turned. A small metal object lay there. A spoon. Not Maison Couleur's engraved tasting spoon, This one was from their regular flatware set, plain, polished, used 1,000 times a night, and it was gently spinning. Not wildly, not dramatically, just a soft, slow rotation, like someone had flicked it with a fingertip a few seconds before. No one was near it. No one had touched it. I stooped, watched it finish its last lazy arc and come to a stop. Alain stared. "Impossible," Lenore whispered. "It wasn't moving before. It couldn't have been." The cooks watched from afar, their faces pale, their hands frozen mid-task. I picked up the spoon. It was warm, and this time, the warmth wasn't subtle. It wasn't a trick of nerves or imagination. It radiated into my palm like something that had been sitting under a heat lamp. "Archie," Lenore said, voice thin. "What does that mean?" "It means," I said slowly, "that whoever's doing this is inside this kitchen." Alain stiffened. "You think I—" "No," I said. "Not you. You were too busy panicking in the walk-in." "Then who?" Daphne asked, stepping closer, eyes darting to the line cooks. I scanned the kitchen. 10 people in chef whites stared back at me. Some scared, some bewildered, 1 or 2 insulted on principle. But only one person in the room wasn't scared at all. Elliot Vanner had appeared in the doorway. He wasn't sweating. He wasn't rattled. He wasn't even breathing hard. He was smiling, not broadly, not theatrically. A small, thin smile that someone wears when a plan is unfolding exactly the way they intended. He stepped forward, hands up as if calming a negotiation. "Everyone," he said mildly, "let's not jump to conclusions. Kitchens are chaotic places. Objects fall, lights flicker. People get locked in freezers when seals malfunction." His tone was smooth enough to butter bread. I slid the warm spoon into my pocket. "Well," I said, "that's a lot of reassurance in a very tense room." He gave me a polite nod. "It's my job to keep things calm." "Funny," I said, "because calm is the one thing we don't have." Alain pushed past me, shaking. "Someone tried to kill me." "Kill?" Elliot echoed, giving a soft chuckle. "Alain, please, a malfunctioning door doesn't mean murder." "And exploding glass?" Lenore shot back. "And trembling spoons? And that message about the lights going dark?" Elliot paused a fraction too long. Not enough for the room, but enough for me. Something flickered behind his eyes, calculating like someone assessing how much longer the mask would hold. He smiled again, even thinner. Stress makes people see patterns where none exist. "Sure," I said. "Except we're not seeing patterns. We're seeing steps, escalation, timing, precision." I looked at him hard. "And someone who always shows up right after the smoke clears." His eyes met mine. Calm, unreadable, but no longer quite as polite. "Mr. Goodwin," he said softly, "I think you're imagining problems." "No," I said. "I think I'm finally seeing one." Before he could answer, the restaurant's lights flickered again. Then, they went out. The room plunged into darkness, and someone, somewhere, screamed. Darkness fell hard, so complete it felt physical, like a heavy curtain someone yanked down over the room. The scream, sharp, female, echoed off stainless steel and tile. Instinct kicked in before thought did. "Don't move!" I shouted, because in a blackout, panic spreads faster than fire. The kitchen froze, or at least most of it did. I heard breath, a shuffle, the scrape of a shoe. Someone wasn't listening. Lenore whispered my name somewhere to my left. "Archie." "I'm here," I said. "Stay where you are." Another noise, metal clattering across the floor, maybe a dropped ladle. Then a grunt, quick and angry, cut short. The lights snapped back on. Not gently, not gradually. They blazed on with an almost violent brightness that left half the room blinking. "Everybody okay?" I called. No one answered at first. They were busy checking limbs and dignity. Then voices rose in shaky unison. I'm fine. Nothing hit me. What was that noise? Lenore grabbed my arm. Her pulse was going full tilt. What happened? Who screamed? That would be me, Daphne said dryly from near the prep counter. She pushed a strand of hair back with a trembling hand. A pot fell, or something fell, or I stepped on something. I don't know. Darkness and I aren't close friends. A few cooks laughed nervously. The kind of laugh you get when you're trying to convince yourself everything is fine and failing. I turned to Alain, who was gripping the counter with white knuckles. You're good, he glared. I'm alive. Barely. Whoever is doing this. I know, I said. They're escalating. Again. Then I looked for Elliot. He wasn't by the doorway where he'd stood just seconds before. He wasn't anywhere. Not by the line. Not near Lenore. Not at the back exit. He had vanished in the heartbeat between the blackout and the lights returning. Lenore, I murmured. Where's Elliot? Her eyes scanned the kitchen and widened. He was just here. I saw him before the lights went out. And now he's not. That was all the confirmation I needed. He left during the blackout, I said. No one else moved. I'd have heard it. She swallowed. Archie, does that mean? It means, I said, that if he's not behind this, he's tangled in it deeper than he wants us to know. A line cook at the far end of the kitchen raised his hand like a kid in class. Someone should see this. I walked over. The kid pointed at the floor behind the mop sink. A spoon lay there, another one. Not spinning this time. Not warm, just lying face up, untouched, but placed. Deliberately. And next to it was a black business card with gold lettering, Maison Couleurs brand, embossed, fancy enough to impress Wall Street, but someone had written across it in red marker, tick, tock. I exhaled through my nose. They have a sense of humor, I'll give them that. Lenore wasn't amused. This is too much. This is too close. Exactly. I pocketed the card. Because now it isn't theatrics. She hesitated. You mean it never was? No, I said. It was preparation. Elliot still hadn't reappeared. That silence was working on the staff like acid. You could feel unease crackling like static. A waiter approached Lenore cautiously. Ms. Drake, guests are asking what's happening. Do we stay open? No, I said before she could answer. Shut it down. She didn't argue. Thank you all, she said loudly, voice steadier than she probably felt. Dinner service is suspended. Go home. We'll regroup in the morning. There were mixed reactions, relief, confusion, annoyance, but they filed out. Alain started barking orders about storing perishables because no crisis could keep him from managing his domain like a tyrant. Daphne was last, lingering near the doorway. You think the saboteur will strike again tonight? She asked. Not here, I said. They got what they wanted. And what was that? Fear, I said. Chaos. Proof that they can control the room. She folded her arms. And if this is Elliot's doing? Then he'll make a mistake, I said. Soon. Oh, good. She rolled her eyes. I'll add that to today's list of comforting thoughts. She left with a swirl of perfume and irritation. When the last of the staff had gone and the kitchen fell quiet, Lenore sagged against the counter, covering her eyes with one hand. Archie, if Elliot is behind this, why? What does he gain from destroying us? Destroying you, I corrected. Not us. She lowered her hand. You think this is targeted at me? It's personal, I said. Too precise to be random, too manipulative to be corporate. She shivered. What do I do now? You go home, I said. Lock your doors, don't answer unknown numbers, and stay away from dark walk-in freezers. That last one was intentional, she said weakly. It was, I said. So is what I'm about to do. She frowned. What's that? I'm calling Wolfe. That straightened her. Right now? Yes, I said. because the moment the lights went out, this stopped being playful sabotage. I looked at the business card again, the thick red scrawl still bright under the fluorescence, and started being a countdown. Lenore swallowed. To what? That's what Wolfe will figure out, I said. I didn't add what I already suspected. Whatever the countdown was leading to, it wasn't going to tremble a spoon. It was going to hit something much larger. I called Wolfe from the alley behind the restaurant, where the night air carried a faint scent of time, exhaust, and someone's impending ruin. The moment he picked up, I gave him the short version: blackout, panic, walk-in freezer trap, spinning spoons encore performance, Elliot's vanishing act, and the business card message that belonged in a villain's scrapbook. Wolfe didn't interrupt. When I finished, he made a sound that could have been a sigh or indigestion. Archie. Yes, sir. You will bring Ms. Drake here. At once. That's not going to be easy. She's one emotional shove away from shattering like her glassware. Then support her physically if necessary, he said. The brownstone is the only place I can guarantee her safety. And given today's events, her safety is now essential to the investigation. When you say essential, I mean, Wolfe said, that our adversary's objective is not merely intimidation, it is leverage. Leverage. That clicked. People didn't escalate like this unless they wanted a payoff, a confession, or a collapse. And Elliot, I asked. Should I bring him too? Assuming he hasn't dissolved into thin air. No, Wolfe growled. If Mr. Vanner is involved, inviting him into my house would be akin to letting a mongoose loose in a dovecote. Leave him. All right. Anything else? 2 things, he said. First, secure the spoon and card. Second, remain alert. The next blow may not be aimed at the restaurant. Meaning? Meaning, Wolfe said, that the predator sometimes follows the hunt home. That pleasant thought accompanied me back inside, where Lenore waited near the bar, arms wrapped around herself. The room felt emptier without the staff, a hollow, echoing shell where the sabotage still clung to the walls like residue. Is he awake? She asked, meaning Wolfe. Oh, he's awake, I said, and displeased, which means we're in the realm of swift decisions and terrible consequences. She didn't smile. What does he want? You, I said. At the brownstone. Her brows drew together. Tonight. Yes. Right now. Why? Because someone is escalating, I said, and the next message wasn't meant for the restaurant. She went still. Very still. Archie, she whispered, do you think I'm in danger? I think, I said gently, that someone wants you to think you're in danger, which is almost as bad, and Wolfe wants you where he can keep you in his line of sight. She nodded, swallowing hard. Let me get my coat. While she crossed the dining room, I scanned the space one more time. Everything looked normal. Too normal. Someone had walked through this room during the blackout, either to slip away or to leave the spoon and card. Someone calm enough, practiced enough to move when everyone else froze. The kind of person who thrives in chaos. The kind of person who could orchestrate it. Lenore returned, coat on, phone clutched like a lifeline. I told the host to close up and lock everything. Good. You ready? No, she said honestly. But I'm coming. We stepped outside. The street was quieter now, the restaurant's warm light spilling onto the sidewalk like nothing was wrong. A couple passing by glanced at us, probably assuming we were early diners leaving disappointed with the prefix. I hailed a cab, held the door for her, and slid in after. As we pulled away, she stared out the window, fingers tight around her bag. You think Elliot did it? I think he disappeared at the exact wrong moment, I said. And that's either guilt or stupidity. And he doesn't strike me as stupid. Could it be someone else? She asked. Sure, I said. It could be Alain, trying to stage his own victimhood. It could be Daphne, because drama pairs well with Merlot. It could be a line cook with a vendetta. But none of them have shown the same cool, calculated timing. And Elliot has. Elliot has, I confirmed. She looked down at her hands. I trusted him. That happens, I said, usually right before someone decides to juggle knives. I built this restaurant, she whispered, brick by brick, recipe by recipe. I thought the worst danger I'd face was a bad review or a slow quarter. Sabotage comes in many flavors, I said. This one just prefers theatrics. The cab rolled through Midtown, lights flickering off the windows. She didn't say anything else until we turned onto 35th. Archie, she said quietly, when you found the spoon on the floor, who do you think put it there? Someone who wanted to say hello, I said, and someone who expects you to understand the message. What message? That they're not done. The cab stopped. I paid, helped her out, and guided her up the brownstone steps. As I reached for the door, she caught my sleeve. Archie. I turned. Her voice was small but steady. Whatever Wolfe finds, whatever happens, don't let this ruin us. Don't let them take everything. I won't, I said. And Wolfe definitely won't. He hates losing more than he hates leaving the house. That earned a faint, fleeting smile. I opened the door. Wolfe was inside, waiting, his face a thundercloud of concentration. Lenore stepped in behind me. He opened his eyes and spoke in a low, controlled tone that sent a ripple through the air. Ms. Drake, he said, you're no longer dealing with a saboteur. She caught her breath. Then what am I dealing with? A strategist, Wolfe said. One who intends to blame you. Her face went white. Archie, Wolfe said without looking at me, fetch the spoon from your pocket, and the card. I handed them over. Wolfe studied the card's red scrawl, then the spoon, then Lenore. Now, he said, folding his hands, tell me everything you have not yet told us. She blinked, but I already know, Wolfe said. Not everything. His voice filled the room like a summons. And if we are to stop this countdown, he continued, we must start with the truth you are afraid to say. I wish I could say Lenore hesitated before confessing, but the truth came out of her the way air escapes a punctured tire, fast, messy, and unstoppable. It was Jonah, she said. Jonah Rusk, my former partner. Wolfe made a noise that was somewhere between a grunt and a growl. Explain. She sank into the red chair as if gravity had suddenly doubled. He helped me build Maison Couleur in the early days. He handled investors, connections. He was brilliant and impatient and impossible to contain. She pressed her palms together. But the investors didn't like him. Too erratic, too unpredictable. They wanted someone stable. They wanted Elliot. Ah, Wolfe murmured. And you agreed. I had to. The restaurant wouldn't survive without them. She closed her eyes. I believed Jonah would understand. But he said I betrayed him, that I handed his dream to a man who wasn't fit to wipe his shoes. And you did not disclose this sooner, Wolfe said, because you feared the connection. She nodded. I thought it had nothing to do with the sabotage. Jonah left the city months ago. He's in Chicago. He is irrelevant, Wolfe said sharply. Continue. Her gaze flicked to me. Jonah wasn't the only one angry. Elliot thought I kept Jonah too close for comfort, that I wasn't loyal to him the way I was supposed to be. He wanted Jonah gone. He wanted complete control of the investor relations, and when Jonah left, Elliot changed. Wolfe tapped the spoon. Once. Into what? Into someone who wanted more than control of the investors, she whispered. He wanted control of me. That landed like a shot. Elliot began intruding, subtly at first, offering to guide me, making decisions without my consent, pressuring me to expand before we were ready. When I pushed back, he retaliated, Wolfe said. She swallowed. Yes. And his objective, Wolfe said, was to manufacture a crisis severe enough to force your staff, your investors, perhaps even the authorities, to see you as unstable, to ruin your credibility. Why, I asked. Power, Wolfe said, and dependency. If she appeared incompetent, he could present himself as indispensable. She would be forced to cede control. He could run the restaurant by proxy. He looked at her. Or own it. Lenore's voice cracked. He told me once, half joking, that the only thing standing between him and complete control of Maison Couleur was my reputation. I didn't realize he meant it literally. I whistled, softly. So he set out to break it, one tremble at a time. Wolfe nodded. The cellar, the spoon, the glass, the blackout, each meticulously staged to resemble instability, not malice. A failing restaurant run by a woman losing her grip. His eyes sharpened. And when you reached your limit, when you were frightened enough, you would make a misstep or resign. And he'd step in, I said, like a hero. Precisely. Wolfe leaned forward a fraction. But Elliot is clever, not wise. He assumed that fear was an open door. He did not account for the fact that fear may prompt a person to seek help, from someone cleverer still. Lenore exhaled shakily. I didn't want to ruin him by accusing him without proof. And now? Wolfe asked. She straightened. Now I want him stopped. That, Wolfe said, is our business. I stepped in. But we still don't have hard evidence. We have a disappearing act during a blackout and a suspicious smile. That won't get him cuffed. Wolfe's lips pressed into a line. It need not. I glanced at him. Meaning what? Meaning, Wolfe said, that Elliot Vanner has become comfortable, and comfort breeds carelessness. He will strike again soon, possibly tonight, but not at the restaurant. I frowned. Where? Here, Wolfe said. Lenore gasped. Here. Why here? Because, Wolfe said, he followed you, and he believes you are unraveling. A woman who flees to a private detective in the night is a woman close to breaking. He intends to push you over the edge. A chill hit the room. So what do we do? I asked. Wolfe closed his eyes. We give him the stage he craves. I cracked a grin. You're planning a trap. As always, he said. But a trap requires bait. Lenore's eyes widened. You mean me? No, Wolfe said. He already expects you. He will not expect Archie. That wasn't on my bingo card for the evening. Me? Doing what? Pretending to be absent, Wolfe said. Leaving the house. Allowing Mr. Vanner to believe you have abandoned Ms. Drake in my care. And you? I asked. He smirked. I will sit. And then what? Then, Wolfe said, we wait for the spoon to tremble. 3 hours later, the brownstone was quiet. Too quiet. Lenore sat on the office couch, pale but steady. Wolfe sat in his chair, glowering at a book he wasn't reading. I was outside, hidden on the stoop with a clear view of the street. At 11:47 p.m., Elliot Vanner appeared. Not nervous, not hesitant, focused. He approached the brownstone like a man coming to collect what he believed was already his. He carried a small black case. I held my breath. He rang the bell once. Sharp, practiced. Inside, Wolfe waited. When I slid in behind Elliot as he stepped into the office, he froze mid-stride. Lenore gasped. Wolfe did not move. Good evening, Mr. Vanner, Wolfe said mildly. If you would kindly place the device in your case on my desk, we may proceed. Elliot's face went gray. Wolfe, I don't know what you think. You intended, Wolfe said, to place inside Miss Drake's handbag a device that would produce a small electrical arc, enough to shatter glass, heat metal, and mimic mechanical failure. An impressive toy, crude but entertaining. Elliot's hand tightened around the case. That's ridiculous. Yes, Wolfe said, as is the notion that she could be responsible for any of these events. He flicked a gaze toward me. Archie? I stepped behind Elliot and lifted the case from his hand before he could decide rage was better than surrender. He didn't resist. He couldn't. His plan had already cracked. Lenore rose. Why, Elliot? Why do all this? His jaw worked. Because you wouldn't listen. Because you trusted the wrong people. Because you needed me and refused to see it. Wolfe snorted. Pfui. She needed competence, not a petulant child with delusions of grandeur. And just like that, it was over. Not loudly, not dramatically, just over. Half an hour later, after Elliot was escorted out and police called discreetly by Wolfe's arrangement, Lenore sat in silence, hands clasped tight. Thank you, she whispered. Don't thank me, Wolfe said. Thank Archie. I didn't do anything, I said. Just hold a case and ruined a man's night. Yes, Wolfe said, but you did it promptly. Lenore laughed once, a real sound this time. She stood. I can't ever repay you. You have paid, Wolfe said. Your honesty was currency enough. She looked at him with gratitude so genuine that even Wolfe, a man allergic to sentiment, softened an inch. Go home, he said. Tomorrow will be difficult, but your restaurant will survive. And Elliot? She asked. He will be exposed, Wolfe said. Publicly or privately, that is your choice. But his machinations end here. She nodded, thanked us again, and left. When the door closed, Wolfe groaned and reached for his beer. Archie. Yeah. See that Fritz prepares something restorative, preferably involving cream. You mean celebratory? No, he said. Restorative. I've endured sabotage, theatrics, and emotional revelation. I require sustenance. I grinned. I'll tell Fritz to double the calories. He grunted. As I headed toward the kitchen, he called after me. Archie. Still here. He held up the original spoon, Lenore's engraved tasting spoon. In the end, he said, it was never the spoon that trembled. I quirked a brow. Then what was? Human vanity, he said. It always is. And that, as they say, was dinner. 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 Was dinner.